Hey there. Ever wish you had like a cheat sheet for creating a classroom where, you know, learning feels like a real adventure?
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't that be nice?
That's what today's deep dive is all about. Giving you
Yeah.
those insider tips. We're cracking open Welcome to Teaching, an illustrated guide to the best profession in the world
Okay.
by Douglas Fisher and Nancy Frey.
Love this book. It's one of those books that, it manages to be both practical
Yeah.
and inspiring,
It is.
which can be
It is.
a tricky balance to strike.
Right. It's like having a seasoned mentor, in your back pocket,
Yeah.
whispering words of encouragement and sharing, those tried and true strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that struck me, like right off the bat,
Yeah.
was their emphasis on building a welcoming classroom climate.
Absolutely. Yeah, they call it creating the climate for learning. And it goes beyond just like putting up a few posters, right?
Right.
It's about intentionally creating a space where every student feels seen, heard, and valued.
Yes. And one of the ways they suggest doing that
Yeah.
is by establishing trust
Right.
right from the get-go.
Right away.
They even give you 6 specific messages that every teacher should aim to convey.
Okay.
Like, think about the power of apologizing
Oh, wow.
for a mistake you made.
Yeah.
It shows
It
students
makes you human.
it's okay to be human,
Yeah.
to not have all the answers.
Exactly. And it models that growth mindset we're always
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
They also emphasize the importance of being open to student feedback.
Oh, yeah?
Imagine a world
Oh.
where even kindergartners
Wow.
feel comfortable voicing their opinions and ideas.
Yeah. And the best part is, they don't just tell you to do it.
Right.
They show you.
They do.
The book has over 30 classroom videos,
Oh, wow.
so you can actually see these strategies in action.
That's great.
Plus, they dedicate a whole section to class meetings.
Okay.
Can you picture a group of 5-year-olds having a say in classroom decisions?
It's about giving them ownership.
Yes.
The book provides a clear format for structuring these meetings
Okay.
with steps like call to order,
Uh-huh.
ongoing topics, and even a dedicated time for recognition.
Oh, I love that.
It sounds simple,
Yeah.
but those routines can make a world of difference.
They do. Speaking of making a difference,
Okay.
the book also dives into the often overlooked aspect of building strong relationships with families.
Yes.
And I don't just mean back to school night,
Right.
right?
It's more than that.
They provide a bunch of practical strategies for keeping those lines of communication open all year round.
Yeah, one thing they emphasize is the importance of focusing on the positives.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Instead of only reaching out when there's a problem,
Right.
what if you made it a point to call a parent just to share something amazing their child did that day?
Oh, I love that. It's so easy to get,
Right.
caught up in the day-to-day challenges.
Yeah.
But taking the time to celebrate those small victories
Yes,
can make a world of difference.
for sure.
And speaking of shifting perspectives,
Okay.
this book does an incredible job of demystifying
Okay.
those sometimes intimidating
Yes.
curriculum maps and pacing guides.
Right. They're like the roadmap for your entire teaching year,
Yeah.
helping you stay organized and on track.
Yes.
And what I appreciate is that they encourage teachers to design lessons that not only address those essential standards,
Mhm.
but also feel relevant
Yes.
to students' lives.
So it's not just about checking boxes.
It's not just about checking boxes.
It's about sparking curiosity.
Yes.
And making those connections to the real world.
Exactly. And they offer a ton of techniques for making learning relevant.
Okay.
One that stood out to me was the idea of using anticipation guides.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever used those?
I have. They're a great way to get students thinking critically
Yes.
and making predictions before diving into a text.
Before they even open the book.
I found they work especially well with reluctant readers because it piques their interest right from the start.
That's exactly what we want.
Yes.
Right? And once they're hooked,
Yes.
we need to make sure they're actually understanding what they're learning.
Right.
And this is where the book's approach to assessment
Okay.
really resonated with me.
Tell me more.
They're all about those low-stakes, ongoing check-ins
Okay.
that help you adjust your teaching on the fly.
Yes. They talk about using things like Fist to 5
Yes.
and Muddiest Point.
Yeah, those are great.
These quick, informal assessments give you instant feedback without putting students on the spot.
Right. And they're not just for kids.
Oh, what you're saying.
I've been in professional development workshops where the facilitator used Fist to 5 to gauge our understanding.
Interesting.
And it's amazing how effective it can be.
Yeah.
It's all about creating a safe space for
Yeah.
people to say, hey, I'm a little lost here.
Yes. And that's something they emphasize throughout the book.
Yeah.
Creating that safe, supportive learning environment
Mm-hmm.
where it's okay to take risks
Yes.
and, yes, even make mistakes.
Right, because that's how we learn.
Yes. And speaking of taking risks,
Okay.
I love how they tackle the topic of collaborative learning.
Yes, it's not just about throwing students into groups and hoping for the best.
Right.
Right.
It's so much more than that.
They provide guidelines for setting up those groups, choosing appropriate tasks, and even teaching those crucial social skills
Oh, yes.
that are essential for productive collaboration.
Because let's face it, knowing how to
It's huge.
respectfully listen,
Yeah.
share ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and work through disagreements,
Right.
those are skills that will serve students well,
Oh, absolutely.
far beyond the classroom walls.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
And while they're big proponents of collaborative learning, they also highlight the importance of providing opportunities for independent practice and application.
Yes. And this is where they introduce the idea of power sheets versus busy sheets.
Oh, I love that.
They're basically urging teachers to be more intentional about the independent work we send home,
Yes.
making sure it's truly meaningful
Yes.
and not just busy work.
Right. It's about asking yourself,
Right.
is this assignment just keeping students occupied?
Right.
Or is it actually helping them solidify their understanding and apply what they've learned?
And if it's not pushing them to think critically and make those connections,
Right.
it might be time to rethink our approach.
Absolutely.
But before we get too deep into lesson planning,
Okay.
let's take a step back
Okay.
and talk about something else Fisher and Frey emphasize.
Okay. What's that?
Inclusivity.
You know, it's something that's so much more than just a checklist item.
Right.
Creating an inclusive classroom.
Mhm.
It means really examining our own biases,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
The assumptions we might bring in without even realizing it.
It's about taking a step back and asking ourselves, are we creating a space where every student feels like they belong?
Right.
Like their voice matters?
Yes.
Because if not,
Yeah.
we're doing a disservice to them
We are.
and to ourselves as educators.
And that sense of belonging is so crucial,
Yes.
especially when it comes to something like engagement.
Oh, yeah.
We often talk about wanting students to be engaged,
Right.
but what does that really look like? It's
Yeah.
not just about sitting quietly and following directions.
Right. Fisher and Frey actually dedicate a whole section to this.
Okay.
And I love how they break it down.
Okay.
They talk about how engagement isn't just a yes or no thing.
Right.
It exists on a continuum.
It's that whole disengaged to authentically engaged spectrum.
Yes.
Imagine actually teaching students about these levels,
Wow.
helping them understand their own patterns of engagement.
That's brilliant.
Right.
It's like giving them the language and the tools to reflect on their own learning process.
Yes.
And it's not just about being cognitively engaged, right? They talk about the importance of behavioral and emotional engagement as well.
Absolutely. It's all intertwined.
Yes.
It's about creating a classroom culture where students feel safe to take risks,
yes.
to be curious,
Mhm.
to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yes, and that sense of safety and trust
Yeah.
starts with the relationships we build.
It does.
And speaking of relationships,
Okay.
there's a whole section on building those meaningful connections with students.
Yes. And they call it
Okay.
developing and maintaining healthy, growth-producing relationships with students.
Wow.
It's a bit of a mouthful,
It is.
but it gets at something really important,
Okay.
that our interactions with students should be about more than just delivering content.
It's about being a mentor, a guide, a cheerleader, someone who sees their potential
Yes.
and encourages them to grow.
Yes. And they offer some really practical strategies
Love.
for building those relationships, even in the midst of a busy school day,
I love that because it can be so hard to
Oh.
fit it all in.
like the 2x10 strategy.
Tell me about it.
Imagine taking just 2 minutes a day
Okay.
for 10 days
Okay.
to chat with a student about anything but schoolwork.
Oh.
It sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but those little moments can make a huge difference.
They can really solidify that connection and show students that we see them as individuals,
Yes,
not just names on a roster.
exactly.
And those strong relationships make everything else easier.
I do.
Including classroom management.
Oh, for sure.
Which, let's be honest, can be a real challenge.
Oh, absolutely. But again, they break it down in a way that feels manageable.
Okay.
They emphasize that there's no magic formula.
Right.
But there are some universal principles that can make a huge difference.
Like what?
Well, like creating those clear expectations and routines we talked about earlier.
Yes.
When students know what's expected of them,
Yes.
it creates a sense of predictability and stability, which can really cut down on those power struggles.
Those power struggles, for sure.
And they really emphasize the importance of teacher self-regulation.
Oh, interesting.
We can't expect students to manage their emotions if we're not modeling that ourselves.
Oh, that's so true.
It's like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup.
So true. And when we're feeling frazzled, it can be tempting to resort to those quick fix solutions.
Right, those Band-Aid solutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they urge us to stay focused on building that positive classroom community.
Yes.
Where students feel supported and respected.
Because when students feel like they're part of a team, they're more likely to buy into those shared expectations and hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely. And just like we build those strong relationships with students, we also need to prioritize building those same kinds of connections with families.
Because let's face it, we're all in this together.
Exactly. And they offer some really insightful advice on how to make that communication with families more effective.
Yeah, like what?
Like, they talk about assuming positive intent.
Oh, that's huge.
Which can be really hard to do when you're feeling stressed or frustrated.
Right, because it's so easy to jump to conclusions.
It is.
Especially when you're only hearing one side of the story.
Right.
But they remind us that most parents really do want what's best for their kids.
They do.
Right.
And when we approach those conversations with a spirit of collaboration and mutual respect, it can make a world of difference.
It really can.
And speaking of collaboration, they also highlight the importance of consistency between home and school.
That's so key.
It is.
When students are getting mixed messages, it can create a lot of confusion and anxiety.
Right.
But when we're all on the same page,
yes,
it creates a sense of stability and support that can really help them thrive.
And that consistency extends to the curriculum as well.
Okay.
Remember those curriculum maps and pacing guides we were talking about earlier?
Right. They're not just for show.
They're not.
They can actually be really helpful tools for ensuring that we're covering those essential standards and giving students the foundational knowledge they need to succeed.
Exactly. They help us stay organized, focused, and accountable.
Yes.
But they're not meant to be set in stone.
Right. Fisher and Frey emphasize that they should be living documents.
Yes.
That evolve as we learn more about our students' needs.
And that brings us to the heart of it all.
Oh, yeah.
Designing those engaging, effective lessons that bring the curriculum to life.
Love it.
They dedicate a whole section to this. And I have to say, it's packed with practical advice.
So good.
I love that about this book.
It's so useful.
It is.
One of the things they stress is the importance of starting with the end in mind.
Okay.
What do you want students to know and be able to do by the end of the lesson?
Right.
Once you have a clear sense of your learning intentions, you can start to plan backwards, designing activities and assessments that will help students get there.
They actually provide a checklist for creating high-quality learning intentions and success criteria, which I love.
Oh, that's great.
It's like having a mentor looking over your shoulder,
yeah,
guiding you through the process.
It's all about being intentional. And they remind us that effective lesson planning isn't just about the content.
Yeah.
It's also about creating a positive and engaging learning environment.
Yes.
Where students feel safe to take risks,
yes,
ask questions, and learn from their mistakes.
And speaking of engagement,
okay,
that's the focus of the next section of the book.
Got it.
But before we dive into their specific strategies for captivating students' attention,
okay,
let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered so far.
Okay.
What's resonating with you?
It's amazing how much, those little details, like creating a welcoming climate and building those strong relationships can really set the stage for meaningful learning.
It's like they say, you can't teach a student who doesn't feel safe and respected.
That's so true.
But once we've laid that foundation,
we
can really start to dig into those specific instructional strategies that help students grasp those aha moments.
Right.
And Fisher and Frey offer a treasure trove of ideas.
They do.
They really do.
They actually start by breaking down the different types of instruction
Okay.
from direct instruction, where the teacher is leading the charge, to guided instruction, where students are taking more ownership, to independent practice, where they're really flying solo.
It's about choosing the right tool for the job.
Yes, exactly.
Recognizing that not all lessons call for the same approach.
For sure.
And one of the approaches they're clearly passionate about is collaborative learning.
Yes.
But I love how they emphasize that it's not just about throwing kids into groups.
Oh, gosh, no.
And hoping for the best.
Right. They actually provide step-by-step guidance on how to make collaborative learning truly effective.
Oh, that's great.
Like, how do you choose the right group size for a particular task?
Right.
How do you teach those essential social skills that are crucial for productive collaboration?
Because let's be honest, we've all seen those group projects.
Well, we have.
Where one person ends up doing all the work.
Yes.
While the others just coast along.
Right.
But Fisher and Frey offer some great tips for avoiding those pitfalls.
Okay.
Like assigning specific roles within the group.
Oh, I like that.
And providing clear guidelines for how to give and receive feedback respectfully.
It's all about setting those expectations.
It is.
Right. And they don't just focus on those big, splashy collaborative activities.
Right.
They also dedicate a whole section to those smaller, everyday instructional moves.
Yes.
That can make a big difference.
Like
how to give clear and concise directions.
Oh, yeah. That's
how to use wait time effectively.
Yes.
And how to provide feedback that's both specific and actionable.
It's about those subtle shifts in our practice.
Yeah.
That can have a huge impact on student learning.
They can.
And speaking of impact,
okay.
Remember when we talked about assessment?
Right.
Well, they don't just talk about those end-of-unit tests.
They don't.
They really emphasize the importance of those ongoing informal assessments that help us gauge student understanding in real time.
Right. They talk about using exit tickets.
Yes.
Think pair shares.
Yes.
Even just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down to see if students are tracking with the material.
Yes. I love those.
Right. It's about constantly monitoring and adjusting.
Yes.
Meeting students where they are.
And it's not just about us as teachers being the assessors.
Right.
They also highlight the importance of teaching students to self-assess.
Oh, yeah.
And set goals.
How that?
Imagine a classroom where students are actively reflecting on their own learning.
Right.
Identifying their strengths and areas for growth.
It's so powerful.
That's powerful stuff.
It is. And it ties back to that idea of creating a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Where students see challenges not as setbacks,
but
as opportunities for learning and growth.
And speaking of growth, I love how Fisher and Frey end the book with a section on self-care for teachers.
Oh, that's so important.
They remind us that we can't pour from an empty cup.
We can't. It's so true.
So easy to get caught up in the demands of the job.
Right.
To feel like we always have to be on.
Yes.
But they encourage us to prioritize our own well-being.
Yes.
To find those things that fill our cups and bring us joy.
Because when we take care of ourselves, we're better able to show up for our students.
Yes.
To bring that energy and enthusiasm to the classroom each day.
Yes.
And that ultimately is what it's all about.
It is. And I think that's one of the most valuable takeaways from Welcome to Teaching.
Yes.
It's a reminder that teaching is more than just a job.
It is.
It's a calling.
It is.
A privilege.
Yes.
An opportunity to make a real difference in the lives of young people.
It's about igniting a love of learning that will stay with them long after they leave our classrooms.
That's what we want.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
And we can't wait to hear how you're putting these ideas into practice.
That's right. What resonated with you from our deep dive into Welcome to Teaching?
Yes.
What strategies are you excited to try?
Yeah, we want to know.
Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag Welcome to Teaching Deep Dive.
We're all on this journey together.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep inspiring those young minds.